And a tie. Okay. Karsten's using his Kadama's reach.
Yeah, both players accelerating.
Elves and Elders on one side, Kadama's reach on the other.
Yeah, we should have North Tree fighting against Yosei relatively quickly. Gorgoroth is asking if there's going to be any video coverage of that antique draft. We have no video coverage. We do have photographs, and I'm sure it's going to wind up. Oh, we don't have a blog today. I think it's getting some coverage from the print side of our coverage team. Who do you think's got the edge in this Game 5 so far?
I think the top means that Karsten's got the advantage. He's got a couple shuffle effects. He's got the top.
Okay.
And I think he's going to just churn the things up to his deck. Although
Ding just threw a hinder.
Ding has a couple of counter spells in his hand. So
yeah, he busts out North Tree, and then he gets if he gets to untap next turn, he'll have hinder available to defend it. Karsten is not at Dragon Mana yet. He only goes to 5 this turn. Does he Wrath? Well, he's going to top first. What was that? Vengeance?
Cranial Extraction.
Extraction? Interesting. Well, Frank's got he does have a Wrath God in his hand. Wow, he's got some options. There's a lot of ways Frank could play this hand from here. Does not know what's in Ding's hand. Has proven to be ridiculous at deducing it over the course of this match so far. Does he put Ding on a hinder here? Does he need to Wrath North Tree off the board before Ding can untap and defend it?
Whether or not he puts him on a hinder, I mean, he has to assume that there's some kind of control element in his hand, right? He has to assume there's at least a counterspell.
All right, Karsten chooses to draw Moloku, leaving a second Yosei and a Vengeance on top of his library. He does indeed Wrath away North Tree, and he gets Llanowar Elves too, so I think that's an obvious line. I like how Ding had the Llanowar Elves back with his land. He's like, it's just one creature, you don't want to trade 1 for 1. It's actually 2 for 1, which is important.
I'm at 18.
Yeah, I think Wrath is clearly correct there.
18, long 20. Go.
Sakura Tribe Elder from Ding.
With hinder backup. Not that, not that it needs any backup.
No, but I mean, that's how he's using his mana this turn.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's another skill that the pros have that a lot of other players could benefit from. Each turn, they're trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to use the lands that I have in play. And if there's something you can do with all of them that's often better, like even if playing card A is the most powerful card in your deck, if you can play B and C in the same turn, it's usually better to play B and C and use all your mana. And Frank goes for Kadama's Reach. Doesn't want to run out of Dragon, doesn't want to run out of Moloku. He clearly thinks his opponent could have a permission spell here. And doesn't want to get an important threat countered by it.
Mana Leak countered the Kadama's Reach, though.
Yeah, it's too bad Frank didn't have a 6th land. Too bad for Frank. Still no 6th land. I don't think Kadama's Reach was the super important threat he needed to resolve. But he does wish it resolved, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, he'd like the shuffle effect there.
Right. He wants the land and the shuffle effect, so that was a pretty big mana leak from Ding.
Go.
Ding does not sack his Elder. Wants to start attacking for 1 and keep a reshuffle effect in case he draws the top, I guess.
10, 17, long 20.
And there is Sensei's Divining Top.
Nice draw.
Yeah. Still got hinder mana available. Yeah, he should top main phase. I'm sure he doesn't want to cast. I'm sure he wants to leave up hinder. he doesn't want Frank to know that he's got the hinder already, right? If he tops, it maintains the illusion that he might be looking for a play.
3 lands on top. I assume he'll be sacrificing
One card?
the Elder here. What's the most critical Game 5 you played in your career, Randy?
Quarterfinals of Pro Tour Chicago. It was the Necro versus Necro match in the quarterfinals, and I was playing against Adrian Sayers, a Texas player. Basically, the entire Pro Tour for me came down to a hymn to Torok that he played on turn 2. I had 4 cards in my hand, one of which was the Necro that I was going to play if I had it on my turn 3. And basically, it was a coin flip. He hymns, he missed the Necro, I untapped, I went Swamp Necro, win Game 5, go on to win the Pro Tour. It was the only Game 5 I played in that top 8. I won the other 2 and 4. So yeah, that was the key match.
And were you? So you said you were calm through that whole.
Yeah, I mean,
tournament?
he's playing him to Turok. It's random discard. There's nothing I can do about it, right? He's either going to hit the Necro or he's not. What am I supposed to do? Yeah, I mean, at some point, I was so familiar with that deck. I felt supremely confident that I understood how to play it. You know, that we had built all the decks from the extended World Championships that had been a couple months earlier, so I'd seen all these matchups before. I knew my deck was set up better than his. I mean, it felt like we had more consultations. I thought our splash color was better. So, I mean, it was sort of out of my control at that point. Like, you have to be pretty confident that you've tested everything to get to that feeling, but you know, when you've played a deck often enough that you know the matchups, it's sort of like it's not my fault if I lose. So yeah,
Looked like
it's all right, let's see how the hymn plays out.
That looked like a nice shuffle for Frank there. Got a gift sport near the top now. Well, he's got a gift in
he's got a gift in his hand.
Actually, fairly redundant top for him.
Well, the last one was already redundant. It was just big monsters, which he also has in his hand. Yep, and as expected, Ding sacks his Elder. He wants to shuffle.
He almost just made the mistake of just ripping a land off the top and, giving Frank more information about how he resolved his top.
Yep.
Which probably gave Frank that information anyway. Certainly seems like a much better top of the deck that he had before he sacrificed that Elder. He's got a Moloku now, 2 Molokus and a Wood Elf.
Draw Moloku there, right? And then set yourself up to Wood Elf to reshuffle next turn.
Yep.
Can he play Moloku with Hinder up? I don't remember if he has a land left in his hand.
Hinder's the only card left in his hand, or does he have a land back there?
I think it's a 1-card hand. Yeah, 1-card hand, so he cannot play Hinder and Moloku. What would you do? Top and look for a
He's
land.
going to top for the Wood Elf.
Sees Arashi as the new card. It's Arashi, Moloku, and Wood Elf on top of Ding Liang's deck.
You can just put the Moloku out there. And
I'd be tempted. He loves to sit on his counter magic.
He's got another Moloku coming up behind it.
He's played this very passively. He's trying to play the control deck here, but he's only got 1 counter. Like, Frank has plenty of threats. He's going to run you out of counter magic eventually. Like, all right, I'm ready. I got my multiple threats set up. I'm just going to run out Yosei. Do you counter it? Frank doesn't care. He's got more threats coming. Now, if Ding had Moloku in play and was countering stuff, it would be tremendous, obviously.
Right. Although I think we probably should touch on the fact that Hinder's very valuable in this game. I think I may have missed it in the previous game, but hindering.
Frank would much rather have those things in his graveyard.
Much rather have them in his graveyard than have them on the bottom of his deck.
It's true.
So there's some decisions also that go into what counter spells Long wants to use on what spells.
Mhm.
You know, you'd much rather mana leak
Okay.
non-creatures.
Well, Karsten made him use up that hinder, so here is Moloku. Ding makes tokens since he had a land drop to use up. Now Frank gets to untap and
Play another Yosei.
I mean, Ding does have mana leak mana up. We know he doesn't have it. Frank, I think, starting to get a little frustrated. Ding seems to have the answer all the time.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about these green-blue decks and the mono-blue decks. They have a lot of similarities. They just, once they get to 5 mana, they're just putting out this giant threat every turn.
Mhm.
Whether it's, you know, Moloku or Kega or Kadama of the North Tree, cards that force you to have very, very specific answers for them.
Mhm.
And, you know, oftentimes have some serious ramifications when they leave play. Moloku leaves a lot of tokens in its wake. Kega, you know, really forces, you know, will control magic when it leaves. So I mean, that's one of the reasons these decks have become so popular.
Okay.
And the Yosei's resolved. No mana leak from Leon.
Yep. It's got to make Frank feel a little better.
It's funny. I really put the green-white on green-white match as being the long one. But
Yep.
Are we approaching Berlin length?
Well, it's still the quarterfinals. We're going to have the 45-minute semis. What do you think? Still get to lunch before 1.
Oh.
How's that sound?
Sounds great. Best of 1.
All right, now how does Ding play this, facing down Yosei? He tops, looks to see what his options are. Gonna naturalize a Wood Elf and a Moloku on top. Nothing relevant to Yosei. Nothing relevant to any, I guess. Karsten's tapped out, he can naturalize his top?
I'll just flip the top back up on.
Yeah, basically nothing relevant for Ding.
It's really tough because I think sitting at home, you know, the temptation might be just pick up all your lands, make a bunch of guys, and attack, and hope the math works out.
Mm-hmm.
But you rarely see people do that with Moloku. It's usually this very methodical game where you have 1 or 2 tokens. You try to and you never, you know, it's in a control matchup. It really comes down to who has the most lands. You don't want to pick up a big fistful of land.
Right.
You know, you need to be able to resolve spells and back them up with counter magic. Certainly in Leong's case. So, but he has no. He's got a Wood Elf, going to get more land.
And reshuffling.
And reshuffling.
Yeah,
and
the top had nothing relevant.
So that second Moloku is shuffled back into the deck, right? He did not draw that?
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
And he's taken 2 from Overgrown 2.
Yeah, that's a trick with Wood Elf. It goes and gets a forest. With the new Ravnica Rare Dual lands, you have the option to have it come into play tapped or untapped.
There.
Oh, Leong seems very, very nervous here.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Ooh, a moat got opened up in that Legends packs of that antique draft. Not bad. Mana Vault, too.
And Mana Vault's not as impressive as Moat. I was
Beta
pretty
Mana
happy.
Vault. Beta Mana Vault is
Is that big-
probably
is that
worth
big?
more than a moat.
Really? It's a big vintage card?
Absolutely. Moat's legal in Legacy. People give it a little bit of play, but the Type 1 metagame has just evolved to be too fast for that card.
Well, it's interesting. At Grand Prix Philadelphia, I think one of the better Legacy decks was Antonino De Rosa's Landstill,
Mm-hmm.
which he
He had a
and-
moat, right?
He and Alex Liebman both played it to a top 16 finish, and they were both using Moat in that deck. There's an Enlightened Tutor, Silver Bullets version of Landstill. And one of the cards they got was Moat, which seemed
Yeah, I mean, Moat certainly seems like it should be a bigger deal than Manifold, but Beta anything, it's just off the charts.
I have an Alpha Manifold.
That's not as good as Beta.
How can that be?
The corners are rounded different. You have to keep refreshing your sleeves so they're not marked.
Oh, okay. So even if it was worth a little more, it would go down in terms of sleeve depreciation.
No, I mean, Betas are considered the premier.
And what is it? There's what, 1,000 of any Alpha rare?
I don't know what the numbers
Yeah,
are.
but I mean, the Alpha is in significant scarcity
Relative to Beta?
relative to Beta. I've always collected Alpha. Those are always my favorite cards. I used to like them when they were not even legal for tournament play, just because they were the very first Magic cards.
Sure. Yeah, that period where Alpha was not legal because the corners were rounded different and the cards were considered marked. I think that's really, Beta just became the standard and hasn't changed.
Second
Well, there's the
Yosei.
second Yosei from Frank Karsten.
So he's going to tap.
He's going to lock down everything.
Well, except for 4 tokens that are going to get made.
Yep. Does he actually make 4? He's going to
He's
pop
not going to
instead.
make 4. He's going to make.
I don't know if he wants to pick up all those lands either. So what's Karsten doing here? He's
going to tap everything down, and then he's going to have 2 turns where Ding is not going to have anything untapped.
Is it 2 turns?
Yes, he skips his next untap.
Right.
For
So
each-
he gets this turn, but he's out of mana. He used all his mana to play Yosei.
Right, but Ding will not untap on his next turn, and then Frank will
Right.
have a turn, and then Ding's next turn.
So the Yosei remembers.
Right, it's the next untap step. So the first one triggers, you skip your untap step.
Right.
And then the next one triggers, and you skip your next untap step, which is 2 turns from now.
Okay, so both Yoseis will deprive Ding of a turn.
Right, and he'll get to tap 10.
Karsten gets 2 totally unmolested turns.
Twice.
Will that be enough to send the Dutchman through to the semis?
Well, he's holding a gift ungiven, so he can find all the things his deck needs to do. He has 2 turns to set it up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think things have to be looking pretty good for Frank here.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Pass.
So Ding floated some mana. And he is picking up 2 lands. And 3 lands. And putting 3 tokens into play, so.
Makes sense.
I mean, he has 2 turns to replay the land, so.
Cool.
Plays land on his turn. So Frank has a turn here where he can just cast a Gifts Ungiven without pretty much any fear of a counterspell.
Does he have anything else in his hand or just the gifts?
Well, Gifts is like
I mean, it's enough.
a lot of cards. 1 Gifts.
Yeah, it's land.
He's got his own Moloku. He's got 2 Gifts.
Wow.
Is that a Death Denied on the end? Or is that... So it looks like Death Denied from the artwork.
All right, he's going to play gifts, looks like. Can he play gifts and Moloku? No, he doesn't have enough mana.
Oh, again, he has 2 turns to set this up.
I understand. So what do you gifts for here?
He's going to get for the same. He's obviously going to get Kagamaru.
The legend package?
He's going to get. Well, Kagamaru is just going to sweep the board clear here.
The Wrath of God package then.
Yeah.
So Wrath, Kagamaru, Goryo's Vengeance, and Soulless Revival. I think he'd prefer to be able to actually gain board advantage between these 2 turns. I mean, he's invested 2 Yoseis in a Gifts, and all he's going to do is negate that 1 Moloku.
Well, then he still has another Gifts in hand, and he can.
That's true.
Oh, he's getting the Hanakami. Hanakami, Wrath of God.
Kagamaru. And I can't tell if it's a Vengeance or a Revival.
It looks like a Vengeance from the artwork on the side of the card here.
How many cuts? 10.
I have 4.
Asks how many cards are in Frank's hand.
That's very relevant to Kagamaru. He's got the mana to Vengeance here.
Gives him Hanakami and Goryo's Vengeance. can't cast Kagamaru this turn.
Yeah, I might give him Kagamaru just because I don't want to give him anything he can cast this turn. Like, Ding does not know whether Frank has a land in his hand, so Wrath of God is something he could play this turn. Kagamaru, definitely not. I would definitely give him Kagamaru here. Kagamaru Vengeance is interesting. Now, he can play the Vengeance, and he can play Hanakami and use it, so... Huh. Might give him the Wrath in case he doesn't have a land, and then he can't do anything else this turn. It's almost a bluff situation. Like, whether or not Frank has a land to play this turn is really relevant to what the right gift split is, I think. Well, he gave him Kagamaru and Vengeance. And now that gives Frank the option to just Vengeance out a Yosei and get another turn of lockdown. Which I think is what Frank should do, right? He's going to replay his top. He's going to play top and use it instead. I might have Vengeance out Yosei.
He can do that next turn. The only thing he's really got to fear is a mana leak, and he'll have plenty of mana to play around that.
He's got 6. He's got 7 lands. Does not have access to an 8th. We know that. Ding did not, but we know that he doesn't currently have access to an 8th. I didn't see if there was one on the top.
The gifts I'm given reminds me of your Chicago story. 4 cards, you get 2 of them. Except that in this case, Ding has to make the right decision.